Hey there, tonight we're going somewhere quiet, somewhere smoky, city, and just a little bit forgotten. It's the year 1890. You're not a noble, not a merchant, not even a clerk. You're the one who lights the lamps every evening, every street. Forget the gaslight romance and foggy mystery novels. This is what it was really like to be a lamplighter in Victorian London, one flickering flame at a time. Now, before we begin, go ahead and settle in. Dim your screen. Maybe turn on a small fan or some white noise, something soft to blur the world around you. And if you haven't yet, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy these slow, sleepy journeys through the past. And while you're here, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always lovely to see who's joining me from across the globe. Sometimes at 2 a.m., just trying to fall asleep. So let's take a walk. The sun's gone down, the streets are dark. Your overcoat smells faintly of coal smoke and old wax. And in your hand, a long brass pole. At the end of it, a small flame. Your job? To bring light to the city, one lantern at a time. Let's begin. The day ends not for you, but for others. In the gray slant of a late Victorian afternoon, the sky folds itself into a colorless haze, neither night nor day. You're used to this kind of in-between. This is when your work begins. You live modestly, a single room above a cobbler's shop in Lambeth. The air in your building always smells faintly of glue, leather, and last night's coal fire. Your room has one window. The glass is rippled and a little warped, but from it, you can see a portion of the street. Even now, the gas lamps are still unlit. Soon, they will depend on you. You sit quietly for a moment before rising. There is no alarm clock, just the instinct of someone who has learned to follow the light. Dusk tells your body what to do. You dress the same way you do every evening, a coarse wool shirt, a thick, scratchy waistcoat, and a long coat that has darkened at the cuffs with years of soot. You wrap a scarf around your neck, not because of any vanity, but because London's cold isn't sharp. It's damp. It seeps into your collarbones, your wrists, the gaps in your gloves. Your lamp-lighting pole rests against the corner of your door frame. It's tall, made of iron and wood, worn smooth where your palm grips it. It's topped with a brass fitting, used to lift the glass cover, ignite the lamp, and close it again. You also carry a small canister of oil and a taper protected in your coat pocket. Matches, too, wrapped in wax paper to keep the fog from ruining them. Your first step out into the street is always the same, not a sound. Not at first. There's a stillness to early evening that most never notice. That thin silence just before the rush of nighttime deliveries, of whistles and footsteps, of shouting vendors trying to sell the last of the day's fish, or paper boys calling out the late edition. But now, it's just you. And the city holding its breath. Your route is long. Nearly 80 lamps, spaced across several blocks. You walk the same path every evening, rain or frost or shine. It becomes part of your rhythm. Past the bakery with its stone stoop, still faintly warm from the ovens. Past the alley where a mongrel dog always sleeps behind crates. Past the iron fence that clings softly in the wind, never quite repaired. The first lamp is always the most stubborn. You stop, set down your pole, check the gas valve. You strike a match. The brief scent of sulfur tickles your nose. The tiny flame flares, then settles. You shield it with one hand as you lift your pole. Click. The brass tip catches the hook on the lamp. You lift the glass. You light the wick. For a moment, the gas hisses. Then the flame catches. A small, steady glow blooms within the glass enclosure. It sways slightly with the motion of the air, then stills. You lower the glass cover gently. The lamp is lit. 79 to go. As you walk, the solace of your boots scuff softly against the pavement. Worn cobblestones in some places, newer paving in others. You know every shift and texture. every crack in the road, where the lamplight bounces against brick and where it disappears into shadow. Some lamps are mounted on iron poles. Others are affixed to the corners of buildings where you must reach up awkwardly with the full extension of your pole. Some are broken, the glass chipped, or the hinge rusted. You make a note in your head to report it, though you know the company may not fix it quickly. Budgets are tight. The city moves around you, just barely. You pass people, not many. A mother tugging a child home by the hand. A man wheeling a barrow of kindling. A pair of women whispering at a doorway, hands tucked into their shawls. Some nod at you, some don't notice. You aren't anonymous, but you aren't known either. You once caught a boy trying to break open a gas pipe with a rock. You had to shout, which you don't like doing. He ran. But mostly, your nights are quiet. The weather changes the way your shift feels. When it's foggy, like tonight, the lamps seem to float in the air, their halos softened, their light swallowed before it reaches the ground. When it rains, your pole is slick in your hand, and the flame is harder to catch. When it's cold, the brass burns your fingers in the first few moments of contact. Still, you continue. Your hands have the rhythm memorized. Lift, open, light, close, move on. Sometimes you imagine you are the only one awake, that the city exists solely for you to light, a private ritual for a sleeping world. Other times you feel like a ghost, passing through streets no one truly sees. There's a kind of beauty to it. Not the kind sung in songs or painted in oil, but a slower, quieter kind, a steady purpose. A job that ends in a trail of warm, flickering light behind you. You reach the halfway point, you pause for a moment. There's a bench here outside a small apothecary. The shop is closed now, but the scent of herbs, dried lavender, maybe pennyroyal, still drifts from its cracked window. You stretch your shoulders, roll your neck, and then back to the work. The last stretch takes you toward the Thames. You hear it before you see it. A low, endless murmur, like breath drawn and never quite released. The river is wide here, and the damp rolls in with it. The lamps along the embankment are taller. They sway in the wind. They light not just paths, but thoughts, for lovers walking arm in arm, for a night watchman patrolling the docks, for a man standing still, thinking of home. You light the final lamp. This one always makes you pause. It leans just slightly, always has, and its flame tends to flicker more than the others. But once it's lit, you turn and see the city behind you traced in quiet golden arcs. You did that. You made that glow. And in a few hours, someone else will come to douse them again. But for now, they shine. You return home in silence. The air is colder now. The shops are all dark. Even the grocer's cat has disappeared from its usual window perch. Back in your room, you hang your coat by the fire. You set down your pole, leaning it once again in its corner. And as you close your eyes, somewhere far below your window, someone walks a little more confidently under a lamp you lit. You won't be remembered, but your light will, and tomorrow you will walk again. Now that the street lamps are lit behind you, let us drift backwards through time, not through footsteps, but through invention. Gaslight feels ordinary today, or rather forgotten. Its warm orange glow, its quiet hiss, its place in the world, both humble and transformative. But there was a time, not long before your lamplighter's walk, when the night was something different entirely. Let us begin with darkness. For most of human history, once the sun fell, life paused. Shadows ruled the streets. Work stopped. Markets closed. People retreated inside and locked their doors. A single candle could cost more than a meal. A lantern required oil, which needed trade or slaughter. In poor homes, rushlights were used, strips of dried reed or twisted cloth dipped in animal fat. They flickered, they smoked, they barely glowed. Night was not for leisure. Night was for fear. Fear of thieves, of missteps, of the unknown. But then coal changed everything. Let's go to the year 1792 in a small Birmingham workshop. A man named William Murdoch experiments with a strange idea. He takes coal, the kind used to heat homes, and bakes it in a sealed iron vessel. As it heats, the coal begins to release a gas, thick, invisible, and flammable. Murdoch pipes the gas into a glass tube and sets it alight, and there, in a quiet flash, gaslight is born. It is not beautiful yet. The flame sputters. It smells faintly of tar and sulfur, but it burns longer than oil and brighter than any candle. Murdoch is not a showman, but others soon see the potential. Within a few decades, gasworks begin to appear in major cities. By the 1810s, gas was lighting shop fronts in Pall Mall, casting pools of warm light onto the cobblestones. Curious crowds gathered at dusk, murmuring in amazement as entire streets ignited. Not with fire, but with firelight. For the first time in history, night could be held at bay by infrastructure. The London Gaslight and Coke Company was established in 1812, the first of its kind. From its vast industrial yard near Westminster, gas was produced in enormous retorts stored in ballooning iron tanks and piped out into the veins of the city. The pipes ran beneath roads, beneath churches, beneath shops. Some leaked, some burst, but they worked. Within a generation, London, the world's largest city, was bathed in gaslight. Let's pause here a moment. Picture yourself in the year 1830, standing on the south bank of the Thames. The Houses of Parliament cast tall shadows behind you, but the bridge, Westminster Bridge, glows with a delicate line of light. It is not quite golden, not quite white. It has a gentle pulse, as if each lamp were breathing. People called it artificial day. Shopkeepers extended their hours. Men and women strolled after supper. Theaters staged late performances. Night became usable, not feared, but lived in. Still, there were problems. Early gaslight was crude. The burners smoked. Soot collected on ceilings and stained walls black. The gas itself was impure, filled with sulfur and carbon particles. It burned eyes, choked lungs. Ventilation became a necessary feature of every well-lit room. A ballroom in 1845 might be filled with 200 guests and 500 gas flames. The heat was unbearable, the smell distinct. Some said it gave them headaches. Others said it was the future. In response, inventors refined the technology. By 1867, the Welsbach mantle was developed, a delicate mesh woven of cerium and thorium, which, when heated by gas, glowed without actually burning. It transformed gaslight from a direct flame into a steady, incandescent glow. It made the light whiter, cleaner, less smoky. Still, mantles were fragile. They crumbled to dust if touched. And the thorium, we now know, was faintly radioactive, though no one knew then. Street lamps also evolved. Early versions had to be lit by hand, one by one each night. But by the 1880s, clockwork timers and pilot lights began to automate parts of the process. In grand cities like Berlin and Paris, entire blocks were controlled from a single valve. Yet London held on to tradition. The city employed hundreds of lamplighters well into the 20th century, not because it had to, but because it wanted to. There was a romance to it, a rhythm, a presence. Gaslight became more than utility. It became atmosphere. Writers of the time, Dickens, Conan Doyle, Gissing, all described the city through its glow, the soft pools of light at corners, the gaslight flickering behind drawn curtains, the way it shaped fog into mystery and mystery into memory. Gaslight was never just brightness. It was mood. It was storytelling. It was time suspended. Even crime had its character changed. Thieves and pickpockets adapted to the patterns of light. Police learned to watch the glow for signs of trouble. A broken lamp could mean mischief. A lamp left unlit might suggest a warning. And in the quiet corners of the city, where light barely reached, the darkness became theatrical. Gaslight made the night into a stage, but all light casts shadows. The rise of gas also meant dependency. Gas companies controlled entire neighborhoods. Their leaks caused sickness. Their rates were high. They tore up streets to lay pipe, then left them muddy and torn. Still, no one wanted to return to the dark. By the time our lamplighter from earlier took up his pole in the 1890s, gaslight was a familiar comfort, not a novelty, but a birthright, a part of the city's pulse. Each lamp he lit connected him to this long chain of invention, of coal turned into flame, of men who changed the shape of night, and in a few short years, it would all begin to change again. Electric light had arrived, brighter, cheaper, more precise, but colder, quieter. Gaslight would slowly dim, yet some resisted. They said the new lights were too harsh, too blue, too sterile. They missed the breath of flame, the soft blur it cast on windows and cobbles. Gaslight had character. It flickered not because it failed, but because it was alive. And so, even as electricity spread, gaslight lingered in alleys, in parlors, in the hearts of those who walked beneath it nightly, like you. Just a man with a pole and a spark, and a city waiting to glow. Tonight, let's take a step away from the street and into the soft, flickering world of flame. Before the steady hum of electric bulbs, before the light switch became ordinary, people once lived by a science that glowed, danced, and vanished. A warm, breathing science, the science of flame. Now, imagine this. You're seated at a small wooden desk in the year 1850. The room is quiet, the windows are closed, the wallpaper is faded. In front of you, two lamps. One burns whale oil, the other runs on coal gas. You light both. The room glows unevenly. Orange halos form on the walls. Shadows stretch and twitch across the floorboards. And now you're watching two different ideas of light, two different paths that once defined the night. Let's begin with oilite. For centuries, humans lit the dark with what they had. Rendered animal fat, pressed seed oils, whale blubber, not elegant, but practical. The earliest oil lamps were just bowls. Stone, clay, bronze. You filled the basin with oil, rested a wick inside, and hoped for a steady burn. Later came the argan lamp, a small revolution in the 1780s. It used a cylindrical wick and a chimney of glass. This allowed air to flow through the flame, making it brighter and more controlled. But still, the oil needed attention. You had to trim the wick, top off the fuel, clean the soot from the glass, and always be careful. The light was warm, but it smoked. It hissed. It left stains on your ceilings and your clothes. By the early 1800s, whale oil became the luxury choice, especially spermaceti, a waxy, clear oil from the head of a sperm whale. It burned clean, smelled faintly sweet, and gave off a light that was almost silver. Reading by a whale oil lamp was a sign of wealth, but it came at a heavy cost. Ships, lives, and the ocean's giants now turned to the other lamp. The gaslight. This isn't a candle. It's not an open flame. It's something different entirely. Fuel piped in from miles away. A gas jet hisses softly. You bring a taper to its tip, and the flame leaps to life. Bright, sharp, humming. It's not the warm flicker of oilite. It's whiter, more precise, and you don't need to trim it or refill it. The fuel keeps coming from the city itself. In the early 1800s, this was revolutionary. London streets began to glow. Not just houses, but shop fronts, bridges, parks, even alleyways. Gas transformed the night, but it needed control. Early burners were simple jets. Later ones used fishtail or batwing shapes, clever designs that shaped the flame, mixed the gas with air, and softened the glare. And then came the mantle, a delicate mesh of minerals. You didn't burn it, you heated it, and in response, it glowed. No open flame, no smoke, just a warm white light glowing gently inside a glass globe. It looked like magic, but it was science. Let's pause here. Picture the two lamps again, side by side. What do you see? Oil light, glowing soft and yellow, flickering slightly with every draft. A small pool of comfort. It lights only what's near. Gaslight, steady, bold, filling the room without movement. Sharper shadows, longer reach. Oil light is carried. Gaslight is fixed. Oil light is intimate. Gaslight is public. One lived in the home, the other reshaped cities, and yet each had its place. Tailors preferred oil light. It was truer to color. Stage actors embraced gaslight. It lit their faces with drama. Some swore gaslight hurt their eyes. Others said they could no longer live without it. And then there are the tiny things we've forgotten, like the sound. Soft, steady, like a distant steam valve. That hiss could be comforting or unnerving. Or the smell. Oil lamps gave off the scent of fat or fish or sweet burning whale. Gaslight smelled faintly of coal, and sometimes iron. Every lamp had a personality. Some burned strong, some flickered, some needed constant attention. These flames were alive, not in theory, but in presence. They required tending, they misbehaved. They glowed not just with light, but with memory. Eventually, electric light would arrive, quiet, cold, perfect, but something was lost. No more trimming the wick, no more relighting a dying jet, no more pausing. Hands clasped to watch a room slowly emerge in soft orange halos. We gained brilliance, but lost intimacy, and yet even now we recreate it. We buy candles, we hang Edison bulbs, we install flickering light apps and video fireplaces. Because somewhere deep down, we remember the glow, the movement, the tiny imperfections. We remember the science of flame, not as equations, but as experience. And in the hush of that memory, we find something else, comfort, because flame, unlike the modern switch, was always a companion, something we watched, something we fed, something we lived beside each and every night, until it was time to sleep. Now that we've wandered the gaslit streets and explored the forgotten mechanics of flame, let's take one last detour. You've been out in the cold. Your hands are still tinged with soot, your shoulders damp from the fog, but just ahead. There's a tall townhouse on a quiet street in Kensington. No sign on the door. No loud invitation, just a polished brass handle. And a light glowing from the windows. Tonight, we'll step inside into a place just a few blocks. And an entire world away from the lamplighter's lonely path. Welcome to the parlor of a London gentleman. As the heavy door opens, a hush greets you, not silence, but a cultivated stillness, the kind shaped by rugs so thick they absorb every footfall, by servants who move as if on air, by clocks that chime as softly as rainfall. The parlor smells faintly of pipe smoke, old paper, lavender polish, and beeswax. It is early evening. Dinner is still an hour away. The gentleman of the house sits near the fireplace, not reading, not working, just waiting. And so we look slowly around this world of quiet wealth. The furniture is deep and inviting, mahogany chairs with velvet upholstery in dark green and burgundy. A long, low sofa near the hearth, each piece placed not randomly, but with deliberate thought to suggest refinement, symmetry, comfort without clutter. The gas sconces on the wall cast a steady golden light, more diffuse here than in the street. The flames are shielded behind frosted glass domes, their glow soft and made ambient, no flicker, just warmth. The mantel above the fireplace is crowded ivory chessmen mid-game, a gilded clock, a pair of small Japanese vases, and a portrait. Perhaps the gentleman's father. Everything speaks of lineage, of taste, of knowing one's place in the world. On the writing desk, a letter opener shaped like a dagger, an inkstand of cut crystal, and a neatly folded newspaper, the Times, naturally, with the edges crisply turned, and everywhere. The comforting smell of age, polish, dust, books. To your left, a bookcase, floor to ceiling. Leather spines in brown, oxblood, navy, gold letters. Marbled end papers. Darwin sits beside Dickens. Burke leans against Boswell. A whole shelf dedicated to parliamentary records. Another to travelogues from India and Egypt. Most of these books have been read, at least once. Some show signs of heavy use, a loosened spine here, annotations in pencil there. But others, perhaps gifts, perhaps trophies. Above the shelves, a portrait of a fox hunt, crimson jackets, ears flattened, horses leaping, and below it, an armchair, deep, worn, where the gentleman sits each evening, a decanter of port by his elbow, a dog-eared copy of The Spectator in hand. The fire crackles gently, its warmth reaching just far enough to curl your toes. In this world, time moves differently. The evening doesn't rush, it unfolds. A footman arrives, not hurriedly, with a silver tray, porcelain cups with gold rims, a heavy teapot wrapped in a quilted cozy, 3 small dishes, lemon slices, sugar cubes, shortbread biscuits. No one is hungry, but that's not the point. The act of tea is performance, a ritual of refinement. Here, conversation flows like the gaslight, steady, composed, never blinding. Topics shift softly, a column in Punch magazine, a cousin's appointment in Calcutta, a debate in Parliament, a new novel, perhaps by Mrs. Gaskell or Mr. Hardy. Each word is chosen with care, each sentence measured. This is not chatter. It's orchestration. To speak too quickly, too boldly, too freely would mark you as someone who does not belong. No music plays from a machine, not yet. Instead, there may be a quiet piano in the corner, or a violin set gently on its side, its strings relaxed. Occasionally, the lady of the house will play a nocturne by Chopin, or a hymn softly drawn out into the air like a lullaby. And in the background, the reliable tick of the grandfather clock, every 15 minutes, a faint chime. Every hour, a longer, fuller note. It does not intrude, it reassures. Marking time not as pressure, but as continuity. Though the parlor feels intimate, it is also layered. Invisible lines are drawn. The gentleman sits at the center. The lady presides beside the fire. The guest, you, are welcomed, but not invited to linger too long. A servant enters only when summoned, never speaks unless spoken to, moves like wind. And beneath it all, a system of social gravity that keeps everyone in orbit, soft but inescapable. Even the gaslight obeys these rules. Brighter in the gentleman's study, dimmed near the servants' hallway. Extinguished completely in the cellar. As evening deepens, the flames are turned lower. One by one, the sconces are dimmed. Curtains are drawn. The fire grows slower, redder. The last of the port is sipped. A single log remains on the grate. The dog sighs and curls at his master's feet. And then the sound of matches, not to ignite, but to extinguish, the hissing tap of the gas valve turning shut. The hush that follows. One by one, the lights go out. One by one, the shadows return, but not with fear, with comfort, with sleep. And so, as the gentleman rises and heads upstairs, you too take your leave. Back out into the city's quiet night. The street still glows with the lamps you lit earlier. Your hands, now warmer, your coat faintly scented with polish, pipe smoke, and velvet dusk, and somewhere in the darkened parlor behind you, the clock ticks on, tick, tick, just as it always has. And now, our long walk through the gaslit streets of 1890s London comes to an end. Perhaps your eyes are already heavy. Perhaps you've drifted partway between memory and sleep. That's perfectly fine. There's no need to stay awake anymore. No more lamps to light, no more steps to take. Only the quiet, only the rhythm, only the soft echo of all that's come before. As you lie still, wrapped in the comfort of your bed, let your mind drift through the places we visited tonight. The streets, dim and damp, echoing with footfalls. The lamps, one by one, touched with flame. The tools, brass, wooden, heavy with soot and use. You were the lamplighter. Walking through fog with purpose, bringing glow to the corners no one remembered. Then you were the witness to how gaslight reshaped a world of shadows, how it emerged from coal and chemistry and bloomed into something steady, elegant, controlled. You became the observer of science, the patient details of flame, not with awe, but with quiet understanding. You saw how light behaves, how it breathes, how it flickers, and how, even when forgotten, it mattered. And finally, you stepped beyond the soot-covered coat and into velvet armchairs, polished wood, tea, and soft voices, and the hush of privilege in a London parlor. Each segment was a layer, a veil, a memory not quite your own, but now gently settled within you. The world of 1890s London is quiet now. The gas lamps are out. The fire has died down. The footsteps have stopped. Even the clock ticks slower, as if it too knows you are ready to let go. You've seen the dark and the light, the cold and the warmth, the grime and the grandeur. And now all of it fades, like the ember at the end of a wick, like the hush that follows a flame. And what's left? Stillness, softness, sleep. History doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits beside you, gently telling its stories, not to impress, not to dazzle, but simply to be remembered. Yves just spent 2 hours with the forgotten ones, the ones who held long poles in the rain, the ones who trimmed mantles and turned valves, the ones who vanished into velvet-curtained rooms, leaving behind nothing but a faint scent of smoke and old books. They did not make headlines, they didn't leave monuments, but in their own way, they lit the path, and tonight you walked it with them. Quietly, slowly, softly. So now I invite you to let it all go. You've listened long enough. You've imagined long enough. Let the thoughts become mist. Let the images fade into gray. Let the room around you dissolve. There is no more story to follow. No more facts to hold. Only the breath in your chest. Slow and steady. Only the weight of the covers, warm and grounding. Only the light inside your mind, gently dimming. And with each breath, a little more distance from the world. Each breath, a step deeper into stillness. And soon, you'll be asleep. Just as the lamplighter once was. Just as the city once was. Just as the past, so full of quiet flame, has always been. Good night.